We welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, your go-to sports podcast featuring great content, conversation, and your occasional disagreement. Stick around to interact and ask questions. The Sports Box is brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports, located on the White Horse Pike in Hamilton, New Jersey. Showcase Sports for the elite player. Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back once again with another episode of the Sweet Tea Show here in the Sports Box. If you're new to the show, this is college football talk every Thursday or Friday night. Depends on schedule availability. We're doing it on Friday night this week, which honestly is probably better. But took a few weeks off. We've both been super busy, but we're back. Garth is not happy after last weekend because his Florida Gators got absolutely embarrassed. But other than that, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
Oh, I'm fired up as ever. We took a big L on the road last week, but hopefully a blowout coming tomorrow in the Swamp. 5-star quarterback recruit DJ Lagway is going absolutely insane. He's going to come in next year and hopefully save us from all the craziness and not so good times that we've had lately. But yeah, really fired up, Noah. Obviously a really, really good week of college football last week. Some pretty good games this week, and we're in full swing. We're kind of in that time where we're finding out what teams are legitimate contenders and maybe what teams were a little bit overlooked or a little bit overhyped for sure.
Yeah, let me go ahead and Mikey Bradley coming in saying, "What it do, dorks?" What's up, Mikey? Noah, appreciate that, Mikey. Man, oh man, Florida got boat raced last week. Yeah, they did, man. It was embarrassing.
I can't even properly reply to this comment because I have no idea who John's favorite team is.
I think he's an Oregon fan because, I think he is.
Oregon.
I remember before last season when Georgia was about to play Oregon, he was talking all that bull jive. And then after the game, when we absolutely obliterated Oregon, I never heard from John the rest of the season. Yeah, there you go. So there you have it. But anyway, we'll go ahead and put up the top 25 AP poll as we kind of get started up here. I'm still kind of
keep an eye on Penn State at number 6, by the way. Kind of flying under the radar right now.
Penn State's been surprising, but if you guys have not yet, if you're watching or new to the show, make sure to leave a like on the show because it helps to spread the show through Facebook's algorithm. But Garth, before we get into talking specific games, I want your opinions just in general on the last couple of weeks since we've kind of been away for a little bit. What have been your main takeaways, the first 5 or so weeks of the season?
Oklahoma being able to play defense this year. I was actually looking it up before the show. I want to say they are, from best of my recollection, 30th in the nation in total defense, which by their standards is absolutely insane, while being something like, I want to say, 8th in total offense. So Venables already showing that he's kind of turning the corner there with the defense, and just in time as they've got a huge matchup tomorrow, which we'll talk more about later. Duke, yes, they lost to Notre Dame, but that team is legit. Their defense played really, really well in that game. Got to watch all of it. It was a really, really fun game to watch, especially if you're a fan of defensive games for sure. Their offense kind of let them down a little bit, but that team's really, really good. I think that Notre Dame also is a pretty stout unit, and even though they lost that heartbreaker to Ohio State, they can very much still make their way into the CFP if they win out. They still got some quality opponents on their schedule where if they win out, it's like I was telling Josh Burdick, man, you can't just write your team off already, man. You pulled out a huge win at Duke. Still a lot of really good teams where if you win out, absolutely can make a case for CFP. Like I said, keep an eye on Penn State at number 6. The defense, absolutely phenomenal. Drew Aller playing really, really good like they needed him to. Very balanced, complete team. And other than that, obviously Texas, they're right in CFP contention. Obviously this weekend will decide a lot. Bad time to be a Clemson fan. It seems like they just can't figure it out, get it right there, despite having a ton of talent on that roster. Miami fan base, absolutely atrocious. They're acting like they've won the Natty already just because they're undefeated against a bunch of cupcakes. And Florida State keeps winning. So, really, really good season of college football so far. Noah. Oh, also, one last thing to finish it off. Washington's offense is absolutely ludicrous. And the Pac-12 as a whole, man. Oregon, Washington, USC, Utah, if they can get Caleb Rising back. This is kind of the question mark right now. Is this dude ever actually coming back, or what is the deal? Because that offense needs him so badly. But, yeah, really good season so far. No, a lot that I could talk about, but that's kind of what stands out to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting storylines. One Pac-12 team I don't think you mentioned. How about Washington State? They've looked really good. Cam Ward is absolutely lighting up, top 3 in total offense in the nation. Of course, Andrew has to back the Pac because this will be the final season of the Pac-12
so he's all in.
Before it disappears from existence and will eventually be forgotten from memory. But exciting season. Got a ton of comments coming in. Josh Lane saying, "Sup, boys?
Josh?
What's up, Josh? How you doing, my man?" Sean Simon says, "Drop some hot pics." Yeah, I checked the post. It was pictures of Goku photoshopped with John F. Kennedy. So there you go with that. But afternoon classes were canceled. Aloha, bitches. Appreciate that, Andrew. Utah is really struggling to put up points. You know what, man? I'm fucking done with Utah. I'm done with these asshole Mormons, man. Like, when I picked them to lose against UCLA, they win. And then I pick them to beat Oregon State, and what do you know? They just lose. Like, it was embarrassing. Their quarterbacks are like 13 for 31 in the game. GJ didn't even really have a good game, and he has had some good games this season. But yeah, they lost. So, they're on the back foot because the top of the pack so far this season does look pretty good. I tell you, a team and a coach I like is Arkansas. Well, I'll tell you what, John, they didn't look good last week against A&M, but A&M might be good this year. I don't know
with Arkansas. No, the weird thing for me is like I do like them as like a non-rival in the SEC and like to see them do good. And these past few seasons coming into the year, it's like, okay, Arky, maybe they're not winning the SEC, but they're going to be a really, really tough team to face all year. And it's like they have maybe a win or two where you're like, okay, this is kind of what I expect from them. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, why is this team struggling so badly? It's a very I feel like it's been a very up and down past few years for them where they look really, really good at times and other times they do not look good at all.
Yeah, A&M, I will say, though, they have looked pretty good this season. I'm still not quite sure what to think of them. But Max Johnson's coming. He's looked pretty good. Of course, their one loss this season did come against your closet team, the Miami Hurricanes, because Tyler Van Dyke absolutely went off in that game.
So here's one. Speaking of that real quick, Noah, a little bit off topic. Yes. But how about, I sent it in the group chat, how about the Miami fans saying that that Miami win over Texas A&M is a very, very good quality win because they're arguably the best team in the SEC.
Let's slow the roll a little bit, okay? I think they've looked good, but I don't know about that. How about Georgia Tech getting pummeled by Bowling Green? What a poor excuse for a team. Hey, man, I'm glad at least one Falcons team can win Atlanta, all right? That's all I'm going to say on that. I already said that one. Oregon State looks good, too. They do. They're only lost to Washington State. What's going on in the circus of a sports world we're watching? What's up, Lewis?
What's up, Lewis? That was LeBron James.
LeBron James and the three-pointers. I didn't even read that. I didn't even know that comment was there when I said the three-pointers thing. Good job, Josh. No one guard doing their thing. Keep it up, guys. Hope you get noticed soon. Wishing you luck for this one, too. Appreciate that, Lewis.
Appreciate you.
We just do this for fun. If we do make it big, okay, that'd be great. But, we just do this for fun. So why do you all have USC ranked both 8 and 9? Because you motherfucker, I put these banners before like an hour before the show, so I probably made a mistake. But you know what? Oregon's number 8, USC is number 9. All right, that's what it is. Arky fans would say otherwise.
So I looked it up real quick, Noah, because I saw Mikey's comment before you put it up there.
Yes.
So far under Sam Pittman, 3-7, 9-4, 7-6, and 2-3 so far this year. So, by no means absolutely terrible and like fire the coach or anything like that. I'm actually a really big fan of Pittman. You are as well, Noah, being a former Georgia guy, but definitely not like Georgia guy. Woo, we're a top team in the SEC, baby. We go toe to toe with anybody type of thing going on there in Archie.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of them, man. I mean, I don't think they played as well as they could this season. That's for sure. I think A&M has done way better than people thought they would be. Ole Miss looks good. LSU's a joke. They can't play defense at all. Like, they're playing offense out there because they got no D. Like, it's embarrassing. How do you score 49 points and lose because your defense gives up 55? I watched parts of this game, Garth. I didn't watch the whole thing because I was kind of flipping back and forth between the I don't remember the other game that was on at the time, but it was like there was just no defense. Like multiple 20-plus yard plays. I mean, it was embarrassing. And don't get me wrong, I love a good shootout as much as the next guy. Like there comes a point where the defense is just so bad, it's kind of like, all right, this is getting a little bit ridiculous. That's kind of how I felt watching that game. A team
like
has
a Pac-12 game almost, Noah.
Pac-12 or Big 12, yeah. A team that has me scratching my head is South Carolina. I don't know how to make them. I don't know if they're very good this year. I mean, they lost to UNC, UGA, and they just lost Tennessee. So I mean, those are three good teams. But you know, I don't know. I still think it's a little bit too early. Jury's still out on a lot of teams, I'd say. Miami's win versus Texas A&M, quality, yes, but doesn't prove anything yet. I agree, Noah. I think I still think Miami's worse than teams like FSU. So, I
Next
can't
weekend
see
they
him.
travel to Tallahassee to take on FSU and Doak, so that'll be the real measuring stick, Noah.
See, I just can't put my faith in Miami, man, because it seems like every year they get all this hype and then all of a sudden they fall flat on their face. So, yes, I do think they've looked good so far. But, I do want to see a little bit more first, I think. Buckeyes, baby. What's up, Jacob Winter? Good old Jake, man. He's fired up.
He's kind of recovered from that exasperation of that Notre Dame just barely squeaking it out. Now he can return to like the full hypeness of winning the Big Ten, CFP. Here we come.
Hey, man, he's fired up because his Denver Broncos had a miraculous comeback against the Chicago Bears. So there's that. Noah and Garth, they're putting Skip and Shannon out of business. Appreciate that, Josh. Obviously, Shannon did finally leave because he had enough of Skip's bum ass. But, yep, there you go. Will this be the first year Maryland beats OSU? That is an interesting matchup. It's not one of the ones I picked this to pick, but I do think it could be interesting because I think Maryland could be able to exploit some of the holes in the OSU defense. But at the same time, I believe Maryland's undefeated, but I don't really think they've played anybody. OSU, I still think we haven't seen their best yet. They've looked good at points, but the only really good team they played, I think, is Notre Dame, and that was a very close game. It came down to the final second pretty much. So we'll see. I'd still probably pick OSU to win that game, but it might be closer than people think. Who are Florida fans rooting for when FSU plays Miami? Garth, I'll let you take this one. I already know the answer, but
so this is actually a really good question, and it's in large part due to how the fan bases act, honestly, a lot more than the actual teams themselves. Mm-hmm. But because of how vocal, obnoxious, full of themselves, like I said, they're already talking about like we're a college football contender. Actually, just earlier today, they talked about how Georgia looks very flawed, and if they were to go into Athens and play them, they could win. I kid you not. I was arguing with them.
Okay.
I hope Miami gets the absolute break speed off of them in this one.
There you go. There you have it, Josh. Oregon versus Washington next weekend. Both are off this weekend. Going to be a huge game. Yes, it is. That's going to be a good game.
One, actually.
And you know what's something interesting, Garth, and I actually have to give the AP poll credit for this one. They typically seem to, kind of have a crush on USC, but they actually ranked both Washington and Oregon ahead of USC this week. So I was very pleased with that. Real quick, before we move on to specific games, I'm just going to look at the poll real quick to kind of give my thoughts. I was surprised UJ stayed number one. I'm still looking for them to have a 4-quarter game, man. They've had every single game. It feels like they have a slow quarter or a slow half. They have to come back, or they're just playing someone so crap that they wouldn't convince them anyway. But, against really good teams, and they're playing one tomorrow, I don't think that's going to cut it. Michigan, Texas, OSU, FSU, Penn State, that's all pretty good. Washington, Oregon ahead of USC. I agree with that. Notre Dame and Alabama, the highest one-loss teams. That makes sense. I think Alabama's kind of hitting their stride again. Then Oklahoma, Washington State, UNC, Oregon State, Ole Miss, Miami. Anything that sticks out in the bottom? I mean, Kentucky and Missouri both ranked. Tennessee and LSU near the tail end there, and then Louisville sneaking in the top 25. And there's an interesting matchup Louisville has this weekend as well. But yeah, LSU, man, dropping 10 places. I think who else was it? Utah dropped 8 places. A couple big droppers this week, Garth. So yeah, but we'll get right in specific games. I'll leave the poll up. Actually, we'll start with this Utah game. I didn't watch this game. I kept up with it, and what to say about this game, Garth? Because I don't think either Barnes or Nate Johnson have looked particularly impressive for Utah. But the thing was, they never really did anything to lose them games. Their defense was elite, and they didn't make any major mistakes. But, even when they beat UCLA, Guard, Utah only scored 7 points on offense. The reason they won 14-7 was because there was a pick 6 in that game. In this game, like I said earlier, their quarterbacks combined to go 13 for 31 in the loss. And, DJ didn't even have an explosive game or anything. But, when you go 2 for 13 on third down, didn't even get above 200 yards of offense, no running game. I believe this game was in Corvallis as well. Andrew might be able to correct me on that because I know he's the Pac guy. But, yeah, Oregon State, I think looks pretty good. I think DJ, for the most part, has looked solid. And I think, with some of Clemson's struggles this season, maybe the offensive struggles they've had there the past few years was more than just DJ. I know Oregon State lost to Washington State, but I think Washington State actually looks pretty good this season. For Utah, I think this kind of puts them on the back foot because I think the top of the pack looks really impressive. You have Washington, Oregon, USC, even though USC has absolutely no defense. Washington State's still undefeated. So, it's pretty tough at the top there. And I think Utah, one of the comments of the story, they need Cam Rising back as fast as possible. I know they, won their first couple of games and they finally lost, but this offense with Cam Rising in it would look completely different. And, Keithy is his number one target at tight end as well. Running game's pretty decent. They're on the back foot now because at the top of the Pac-12 is very good. Not going to say they're out of it just yet because it's only one loss. If they win out and, make Pac-12 championship game, they're right in it. But it's kind of, they don't have any margin for error. If they lose one more game, especially if it's a Pac-12 game, their season is pretty much over. So at least contention-wise, contending for the Pac-12. So I think they need to get Rising back as soon as possible. And I think that'll really help them. Oregon State looks pretty solid. Do want to see a little bit more from them because they kind of come out of nowhere. But Garth, what were your thoughts in this game? Utah finally going down this season.
Yeah, so like you said, obviously Utah needs Cam Rising back badly. But the thing with me, Noah, is that Utah is kind of been that one team in the Pac-12 that plays defense, that's very, very physical on both lines of scrimmage. They kind of beat teams down. They wear them out. This game was the exact opposite. Oregon State beat them up. Their offense couldn't do anything. They ran the ball really, really effectively on Utah. They looked like the better team start to finish. And honestly, the score is not really indicative of how bad Oregon State kind of beat Utah on this one. It could have been worse, honestly. But DJ has looked pretty darn good for them. I think he had one bad game in like week 2 where he had 2 or 3 interceptions. But outside of that, he's looked really, really good for them. They play a really tough physical brand of football, which is rare to see in the Pac-12. And, things are looking pretty good for them. Obviously, that loss to Washington State, but Washington State's a very, very good team. And it's time for kind of, I guess, panic mode, if you will, for Utah, Noah, because by no means are they a bad team, but Pac-12 title was definitely the goal of this team headed into the season. They wanted to win it again. Large reason why guys like Cam Rising came back. And right now it's kind of like, hey, these guys are on the back burner. They got to fight their way back if they want a shot at it. So we'll see how it pans out. And like I said, is Cam Rising ever actually going to come back? Because now we're really starting to wonder, hey, when the heck are we going to see this guy?
John says Oregon's the away team. Who you guys got on Alabama versus A&M, or is that going to be a topic? That's going to be a topic. That's one that we got 8 games to predict this weekend. There's not quite, like Garth said already, not quite as many, major matchups other than River Rivalry, that game is going to be absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, that week we had, I think it was the week before last, where the lineup was just absolutely stacked. It's not like that this week, but there are still some decent games. Oregon State, Georgia has 4 out of the next 6 games against ranked teams. Who's going to give them the biggest challenge? I think Kentucky could be really tough. Tennessee, I think they play Ole Miss as well. I mean, look, here's the thing, Anthony. If they play in the first half like they have all season, all those games could be tough because it's one thing to screw around for a quarter against UAB or Tennessee Martin, but against the SEC schedule, I mean, we saw it against Auburn. Auburn's not exactly what people picked as a very good team. Granted, it was on the road at Jordan Hare, but I mean, they can't keep doing this. I mean, they had to rally just to win by 7 against Auburn, and they needed some big plays in the fourth quarter to do that anyway. So, look, don't get me wrong. I'm the biggest UGA homer that, you guys probably know, but, you got to keep it realistic as well. Like I said earlier, I was very surprised they remained number 1 in the AP poll. I would not have minded them dropping, even all the way to 4 or 5 with what I've seen from them. But clearly, the AP writers, they're clearly focusing a lot on the fact that we're back-to-back national champs when they're doing those rankings. Granted, I don't think that should really play much of a factor when you're ranking for this season, but obviously it does. That's why Alabama always gets ranked pretty highly, even if they haven't looked their best. So, I think this is an opportunity for UGA to show whether or not they can turn it on or if they're going to lose, because I think if they don't play a complete game, they could definitely lose this game. Like John says, people might think it's crazy, but if UJ doesn't stop that run game, Kentucky will give them a scare. Illinois versus Nebraska is an upset. Marshall over NC State. Louisville over Notre Dame. Oregon State has been on the up recently, won 10 games last season. Probably Tennessee. Probably. And it's on the road as well, so that'll be really tough as well. That might be a reason to pick that Tennessee road game over tomorrow's game. Oregon State has one of the better defensive squads in the pack. So does the other team in Oregon, which I want to get into in a little bit. But moving on to the next game. This good old USC defense, man, it never fails to disappoint. And, it kind of gets tiring, Garth, to keep mentioning it over and over again. But, I mean, clearly Lincoln Riley, I don't know why he brought over Alex Grinch from Oklahoma, but he did. And, what do you know? Oklahoma's defense study looks good with Brent Venables there working his magic like he always does. And USC can't play any defense. Now, I will say maybe they went a little bit soft in the fourth quarter because they were up big in the second half. But, I mean, to get all the way back to 48-41, you gave about 27 points in the second half. I will say Caleb Williams and Shadur Sanders were both insane in this game. Caleb Williams got the slight edge because he had 6 pass touchdowns. I think Sanders had around 4. Just an absolute shootout of a game. This USC defense, Garth, and, this is why I said I'm glad that they're ranked below teams like Oregon and Washington, because I think those teams we've seen, more complete performances from both those teams and more dominant performances as well. I think USC is very reliant on their offense and Caleb Williams. If their offense has a game where they run into a team where, they're not quite firing on all cylinders, they're not the typical high-flying offense they usually are. If they got to rely on their defense, man, it's not looking good. And one last thing before I throw this over to you. Shout out to Bear Bryant, who transferred from UGA to USC because he was struggling with his classes because, USC is a college with such low academic standards. Fucking moron. Going to get on this defense is just getting absolutely torched all the time. But anyway, Garth, what were your thoughts on this USC-Colorado game? Colorado losing back-to-back games as well.
Yeah, so early in this game, it looked like it actually might be a blowout and that USC knew how to play at least a little bit of defense. Obviously, a tale of two halves in this one. Colorado came storming back. Absolutely phenomenal performance by Shadur Sanders. No Travis Hunter either. So that obviously coaches, fans, whatever, never want to say that just one single player makes a difference. But, man, if he had played, who knows what happens in this one. Also, there's no guarantee that they can kind of mount that kind of comeback again. But nonetheless, it's weird, right? With Colorado, they start off the season so hot with all the attention, all the hype. Obviously, they're still one of the focal points in college football, but it's not like they lost to 2 absolute bum teams. And one of them, they took right to the wire at home. Obviously, Oregon beat the brakes off them. But, there's still a lot to be hopeful or excited for this Colorado football program moving forward, because, they're kind of getting the really, really tough part of their schedule out of the way early. Obviously, they still got some tough games left, but playing at Oregon and then USC at home back-to-back, that's about as tough as you could get for the Pac-12. So they could get hot again, start stringing some wins together, especially, they keep playing the way they have been offensively, get Travis Hunter back. On the other side of things, USC, Caleb Williams is still as good as ever. That offense is really, really good. Defense, still a question mark. I feel like Lincoln Riley better bring in a top-tier defensive coordinator this offseason. Forget about hiring his buddies, especially if they don't win the Pac-12, don't reach CFP.
Let's see here. Andrew says USC's defense is the primary reason I'm picking Washington over USC as Pac champions. How do you feel about number 12 Oklahoma beating number 3 Texas? Currently, ESPN is Oklahoma favored to win 55%. We're going to get into that a little bit, Anthony. I think that's a barn-burner game. Both teams undefeated in Red River. God, this is a damn tongue twister. Red River Rivalry for the first time since 2011, guards. So it's been a while. Omarion Miller was the X factor for Colorado in that fourth quarter, 7 catches for 196 yards. They're stacked at wideout, but like Gar said, I think once they get Travis Hunter back, that'll bring back another element, not just their offense, but defense as well, because he plays corner as well. But yeah, I do think they miss him. Obviously, I don't think any of these teams have any defense, but I kind of agree with what Andrew's hinting at there. I think, teams like and common opponents as well. Like you said, USC beat Colorado by 7, whereas Oregon beat them, 42-6 or something like that. I think Oregon has clearly looked more impressive this season, but obviously there's still a long way to go. Let's see. Red River Rivalry is one of the best. I think the record between the two is 33-3. I got the record, actually. We'll look at it a little bit later. Speaking of Washington, guards, they impress again. And look, I know the final score against Arizona was 31-24, but the game was really not as close as that. Arizona scored a touchdown with about a minute left. For the most part, Washington was, pretty convincingly ahead. Michael Penix, man, I know this is your guy, so I'll let you do most of the talking on this one. But, highest ranked team in the Pac-12. I believe we both did pick them to win the Pac-12 in the preseason. I think Oregon is probably better than we thought they would be as well. But what are your thoughts on this Washington team? Because obviously I know you're a big fan of what they're doing this season.
Yeah, the offense, and I don't think I need to beat the horse dead, but this offense, absolutely phenomenal. A large part Penix, but also shout outs to the offensive coordinator. 3 wide receivers that are all within the top 50 in the nation in total receiving yards. One of them is in the top 10, actually, might even be top 5. I haven't checked it real recently to know for sure. But they go 3 guys that are absolute studs at the wide receiver position. The offensive line is a really good quality, experienced unit that helps protect Penix so that he can kind of dice up opponents. He's an experienced guy at this point. He's a veteran. He's seen a lot of different looks. He knows how to read and diagnose defenses. The thing with Washington, Noah, really, obviously Caleb Williams ever so slightly stats-wise has probably had a better season so far than Penix, and that is no disjustice because both of these quarterbacks have been absolutely phenomenal. Definitely Heisman caliber performances thus far in the season, but Washington's defense is a heck of a lot better than USC's. And even with that said, I still don't think it's like an elite unit or like a top 10 in the nation by any means, but it's a lot better. And I feel like unlike USC, their MO is kind of like, hey, guys, if we don't score 50 points a game, then there's a chance that we still lose because our defense is that bad. Washington has shown in games just like this on the road at Arizona, who, I wouldn't say is necessarily a great team, but they are kind of one of those under-the-radar Pac-12 teams that play people tough, a little bit tougher than you would think. They've shown, though, in kind of these lower-scoring games where maybe they're not scoring on every possession, and they need their defense to come up, they can make it, make the plays they need to make. So that's why I would give the edge, at least so far in the season, to Washington. And like Andrew said in the comment, why I actually picked them to win the conference. over a team like USC.
Like John says here, I think Oregon's right there. Everyone says Washington's offense is so high, but Oregon has more points for and better points against. I've been really impressed with what Dan Lanning's done to Oregon. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased because, Georgia guy. But, I mean, the impact is there. Like, Oregon's never really a team we've thought of as having great defenses. They're more of an offensive team. But, they're 8th in points against this season. And, to kind of link this back to Jacob's comment here about the USC defense, yes, I do think their defense is improved, but they've been so bad in recent years that their idea of improving is giving up 24 points per game, which is 64th in the nation. And when you look at their schedule, the 2 games where they gave up less than 20 points were against Nevada and Stanford. And they gave up 28 to San Jose State and Arizona State, not exactly what you'd call very good teams. And then obviously the Colorado game. So, when you look at their schedule, further down the road, they play at Notre Dame. They play Utah later when they'll probably have Cam Rising back. Washington at home, and then at Oregon, UCLA. I mean, these are not, scrub teams to where if you have a bad defense, they can't exploit it. So I have serious concerns about the defense. It may be better, yes, but not really saying a lot compared to what they've had recently.
So fun fact real quick for you, Noah, looking at total offense in the nation, number 1, Washington, number 2, just ever so slightly behind them, Oregon, number 3, South Carolina, number 6, Washington State Cougars. Obviously, Pac-12 always has electric, great offenses, and that's what we know the conference for, all offense, no defense. But the fact that you have 4 teams in the top 6 is absolutely insane.
Why are the Cougars underdogs to UCLA? I have no idea. I saw that, it made no sense to me.
I feel like UCLA is one of those teams that's way too overhyped so far this season.
I mean, I think they're good. I will say this. I think Dante Moore, their quarterback, 18-year-old true freshman, 5-star, he's going to be a stud. But, yeah, as of right now, with what Cam Ward's doing with that offense, I don't really think it makes any sense. Bo Nick's the GOAT. Shut the hell up, Mikey. They're still being slept on. I agree. I do think they're being slept on. They are number 13, but, yeah, I do think they're a little bit underrated right now. Speaking of something that's not underrated at all, this LSU defense, man, they get steamrolled by Florida State to start the season. Past couple of weeks, it looks like LSU is finally getting their act together. They get back up to 3-1, but then this game, I did watch a little bit of this game, and I will say this. Shout out to both quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels and Jackson Dart, 948 yards from scrimmage, 10 total touchdowns combined between the two. But, this was an Ole Miss team, Garth, the week before when they played Alabama on the road. Their offense couldn't do anything. And then all of a sudden they play LSU, and it's just like, there's holes everywhere. Judkins rushed for about 177 yards as well, in addition to Dart lighting up their defense. I don't know what Brian Kelly's done with that LSU defense, but, man, it's just embarrassing. And, this is a conference that, for the most part, is known for pretty good defenses. But I've never seen an SEC game quite like this, to where there's over 100 points scored, and the parts I did watch, the defense was just not there at all. I mean, just wide open guys over and over, massive play after massive play. Terrible tackling from LSU as well, I got to say. It was just, multiple missed tackles on several plays. It's just not going to cut it, man. And, I don't know if they're in SEC West contention anymore because, it's just so tough. A&M and Alabama, I think whoever wins that game this weekend might actually end up winning the West, because LSU has no defense. Alabama, they're still kind of trying to get their stride going, but they have looked good since they lost to Texas. A&M, I'm not sure what to think about, but I think there's way more question marks with LSU right now, because they've now lost 2 games. Even if they somehow win the West and win the SEC, I mean, a 2-loss team making the playoff, it would take a lot for that to happen. So, Garth, what's your thoughts on, this LSU loss to Ole Miss and their season as a whole so far?
Yeah, my stock in this LSU football team has dropped drastically, Noah. Obviously, headed into the season, we all felt like their offense was going to be electric. Jaden Daniels, Neighbors, they have a ton of playmakers on that side of the football. And honestly, with the exception of that second half against Florida State, their offense has been very, very good. It's actually one of the best in the nation. The issue is the other side of the ball. The defense is absolutely atrocious. We actually got a picture here that I told you to add to the show, Noah, and I'm glad that you did. Yep. this is a screenshot I grabbed from the the Late Kick with Josh Pate show on YouTube. Look at this, 108th in the nation in points allowed, 117th out of 132 in total yards per game allowed, 110th in pass yards per game, 104th rush yards per game, 109th in plays that go 20 plus yards. So it's not like the defense is average or just, slightly below average. It is downright abysmal. And honestly, it kind of reminds me of my Florida Gators with Kyle Trask. His last year that he played for us, where our defense, or rather offense, could very easily go out and score 40, 50 points every single week. But because the defense was so bad, we were not steamrolling teams. Everybody could, kind of keep up with us, if you will, because the defense was just that bad. I would not pick LSU to win the West right now if we were making predictions like almost midway into the season. I kind of agree. I think it's probably going to come down to whoever wins the Bama A&M game, quite frankly. Maybe Ole Miss makes a late push. But yeah, and the thing with me, Noah, too, is it's obviously as the season goes on, teams improve for the most part, not always, but for the most part, especially if they have good quality coaches. But I'm telling you guys right now, a defense that is this poor, this bad, is not all of a sudden going to flip like a switch and be one of the best units in the SEC. It's just not happening. That's not how things work in college football. Will they get a little bit better? Yeah, it's possible. But like I said, my stock for LSU has gone straight down between the start of the season to now.
Yeah, I'm with you. And look, it's kind of weird because, I think, coming in this season, no one had A&M as a contender. At least not a lot of people did. People had question marks about Alabama, with their coaching staff. I know you've mentioned that in the past and, they losing so many players. Yes, I know they had the number one recruiting class, but getting in Jalen Milroe, he's been a question mark. And, even then he's had, been very hit and miss for the most part. But, yeah, their defense just fell off a cliff. And it's not like it was great last year, but like it wasn't this terrible. Like they could, at least keep it within range for their offense to win the game. Now you can score 49 points and still lose. I mean, it's just absolutely embarrassing. Speaking of a game where there actually was defense played guard, the last game before we get into our team's games, Notre Dame winning on the road against a previously undefeated Duke team, 21-14. They were able to get the score in the fourth quarter to take the lead and hold on to it. Audric Estime with the 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground had a good game. Even in a game where, Sam Hartman wasn't lighting it up by any means, they were able to win. Unfortunate for Duke, Riley Leonard did get injured towards the end of the game. I don't know if you've heard any injury diagnoses on that guard. I haven't looked into it, but some main takeaways for me. I know Notre Dame lost to Ohio State, but I've actually been pretty impressed with them. I think their defense looks good. They were 1 yard away from beating Ohio State. I know almost or ifs doesn't count for anything, but Ohio State's a very good team, and they took them right to the wire, play by play. They do have some big games coming up. We'll see what they do against USC soon. But, I'll tell you what, man, I understand why they're the top-ranked one-loss team in the nation because, their one loss was incredibly close. They've looked, overall pretty balanced and pretty solid in the games they have won. And Duke's a good team, man. I know people like to joke about them, being a basketball school or whatnot, but they've been good this season. And it was a very tight game, but Notre Dame was able to pull out a close one. And look, that's what you need if you're trying to compete for the college football playoff. It's not always about, and I know teams like Alabama or maybe even Georgia the past 2 years have kind of, made this seem normal to people. It's not always about blowing out a team by 35 points. It's about winning the close games, survive and move on. Even a team like UGA that hasn't looked good this season, they're still 5-0. And, if the end of the season comes and the team is 11-1 or 12-0, it's not going to matter so much if you won all those games by 1 point. What matters the most is you get the win and move on and get the get the championships, get the things that CFP committee is looking for. And I've been impressed with Notre Dame. The Ohio State loss was obviously very heartbreaking, unfortunate for them. I don't know how the hell you give up a freaking 3rd and 19 in the fourth quarter, or why did they pass it on the 2nd and 15 and give Ohio State more time? But regardless, I still think they looked pretty good. I think Duke still looks really good. They could maybe still compete for the ACC, especially with Clemson down. I think it'd be tough, though, with how FSU is looking this season. But Garth, what were your thoughts on this Notre Dame Duke game?
Yeah, so I actually sat down and watched all this. Obviously, being a diehard Duke basketball fan, it makes it very easy to root for them in football. But regardless, it just was a really, like, as a neutral, as just like a fan of college football in general, when you say, hey, Duke, Notre Dame, both these teams are ranked somehow, primetime night game, it makes it really easy to go, okay, I got to tune into this one. Even if it's just for a little bit, I got to see how this thing plays out. What I will say to with full confidence after watching this game in entirety, the reason why it was so close and the reason why Duke had a very realistic shot at winning this game was because of their defense. Their defense played absolutely phenomenal, came up with a lot of big-time stops, really limited Notre Dame. They didn't have a lot of, like, huge chunk plays. They had to grind it out, pound the football between the tackles, get kind of what the defense gave them the entire night. Why did Duke lose this game? And it might be not the most popular take and against what a lot of people are saying, but having sat down and watched this game in its entirety, the reason why Duke football lost this football game was because of their offense. The defense gave them chance after chance after chance. The offense never really got into a rhythm. They didn't have a lot of big chunk plays. They never really found their footing in this one. They had spurts where they looked really good, but throughout the night they had a lot of struggles. Also, the crowd brought it. Notre Dame actually had some key false start penalties that kind of caused their drives to sputter out. And just to support my point here, Noah, Riley Leonard, 12 of 27, so less than 50% completion rate, 134 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He also led the team in rushing with 18 carries on 88 yards, and the receiving leader had 67 yards. So Duke they really couldn't get the offense going now. And quite frankly, if the offense had been firing on all cylinders all night, they actually might have beaten Notre Dame by like 2 scores in this one. The defense was playing that well. On the other side of things, credit to Notre Dame. They hung in there. It was a tough road game. It could have been a very frustrating game where they let things get to them because it was such a struggle offensively, even though their defense played so well, but they found a way to pull it off. Really, really good game by Istemi. What's the tight end's name? He was another guy, Mitchell Evans.
Mitchell Evans, yeah.
Absolutely fantastic night. Every time they needed like a big play to convert, move the chains, it seemed like it was him in the passing.
He's a stud, game. Yeah.
But nonetheless, just a really friggin' good football game to watch, Noah. And like I said, this is 2 teams that probably, at least for me and Noah, who are younger guys, the first time ever these 2 teams have been this highly ranked and matching off in a primetime night game. So just really cool game, honestly.
I mean, first time ever College game day was at Durham for football games. So I mean, that's to tell you all right there. Don't sleep on Auburn either. Look, John, we love you, man, but I got to be honest. With the quarterback play I've seen from Auburn this season, I'm kind of like with Auburn this season. I'm sleeping on them all the way. They got no passing offense, man. Okay, great. They kept it close against UGA. UGA played like shit. And the reason they kept it close was because we could not stop the running backs, and because Robbie Ashford came in, and for some reason we didn't put a quarterback spy on the plays when he comes in when it's obviously going to be quarterback option or draws. They already had 2 SEC losses, which is really tough to win a division when you got 2 losses in the same division. Granted, they do play LSU this week, and LSU has no freaking defense whatsoever, so maybe they'll finally have a game where the offense looks good. I'm sleeping on them all season, man. I'm sorry. Granted, I am biased because I hate their freaking guts, but yeah. Duke quarterback has high ankle sprain and then a bye. He should be ready in 2 weeks against State.
Yeah, Notre Dame still very realistically make a push for the ACC now. This by no means has like killed their season just because they lost this big time matchup against ND. They just got to bounce back, keep it moving. The ACC is still wide open at this point.
See, I don't agree with this. Didn't Leonard get injured after Notre Dame took the lead? I didn't watch.
Yeah, he got hurt like literally right at the very end of the game. Like I said, I don't think the injury is what cost Duke the game. I think it was the fact that their offense just could not get anything consistently going the entire night.
Battle of nerd schools. I mean, it's true, man. It's true. You got the Irish on one side, and you got the medical school nerds on the other side. Notre Dame's going to lose on the road this weekend. It is a close game, but I don't know about that. Auburn almost lost to Cal Berkeley. That they did. I do remember that.
Yep, good old Hugh Freeze.
All right. So I'll do my raging first before you do yours. So this Georgia game, another slow start in the first half, Garth. I was pulling my hair out in this first half, man, because it's one thing to get outplayed in a game, right? Like when we had that, SC championship against Alabama 2 years ago, or when we played, Florida in 2020, LSU in the championship game when they had Joe Burrow. It's it sucks to get blown out, obviously, but like if you can just acknowledge the other team was the better team, it hurts less. But when I see a team like this, that in my opinion is still the most talented team in college football, if you just look at the players they have, underachieve week after week. And I see an Auburn team that I don't think is very good at all, kept it close with us for the first half. Look, it'd be one thing, right? If Auburn looked really good, if Peyton Thorne was lighting our defense up, if we couldn't get any pressure at all, what have you. You know what Auburn's offense in this game was, Garth? Run the ball with their running backs and do quarterback option. Play after play after play. You knew what was coming when Robbie Ashford came in the game. The only thing he was going to do was either do a quarterback option or a quarterback draw. And the defense could not stop it on multiple third downs. They converted because of this crap. They didn't put a quarterback spy on the quarterbacks until like late in the third, early fourth quarter. And what do you know? We finally started shutting down their offense when they did that. And speaking of offense, this offense, man, I don't know what to think of it because there are times where it looks unstoppable, and then there are times where it looks like a high school offense that just can't do anything right at all. I know a lot of people want to put the blame on Mike Bobo. Look, Bobo's obviously not Todd Monken. Todd Monken, in my opinion, was the best offense coordinator in all of college football in the past 2 years. But I think people put too much blame on Monken because here's the thing. Bobo has had a lot of plays this season where he's made good play calls, but Carson Beck will barely miss a throw. I remember one against South Carolina where Brock Bowers was pretty open down the field on a good play call by Bobo, and Beck barely missed him. And this Auburn game, Oscar Delp was wide open deep on a good play call once again from Bobo. Carson Beck barely missed him. It should have been a touchdown. Instead, I think we had to punt on that drive because of that. And then all of a sudden in the second quarter, especially the second half, and especially the fourth quarter, it just looked like a completely different offense took the field. Like Carson Beck was like 60 in the second half, Garth. He was 16 for 20, like 231 yards with a touchdown pass. And get this, Garth, 8 for 10 on third down. That's just absolutely insane. They could not cover Brock Bowers at all. He just absolutely went off. He had almost 200 receiving yards. Look, Notre Dame fans, I know you're about that Michael Mayer, talk, but let's be honest. This guy's been the best tight end in the past 3 years in college football, and it's not even close. This guy could have literally played in NFL when he was 19 years old. Like, that's how insane this dude is. Auburn did a good job holding him in the second half, but then once he gets one big play, Garth, it's like the floodgates open. His confidence gets going. The play calling suddenly improves. It just opens up everything. They can't stop him at all. I mean, just absolutely annihilated the Auburn secondary. It wasn't even competitive. But even then, Garth, all of that, and Carson Beck converted a big 3rd and 12 on their go-ahead drive. That was amazing. They still just win by 7. And that's why I say it's great to do this against, a struggling Auburn team with a new head coach coming in, has absolutely no quarterback. And yes, I know it was on the road, but like if they do this against a team like Tennessee, especially when it's in Neyland, or Kentucky tomorrow, if Devin Leary finally has a defensive game, and I will say this, Ray Davis obviously can exploit a rush defense if we don't shut it down early. Ole Miss as well. I mean, they got to get it going, man. I'm still looking for that 4-quarter game to where they just look solid start to finish. Instead of this crap where they have a terrible first quarter, a terrible first half, and they got to get it going in the second half and come back. They were down 14-3 to South Carolina after the first half 2 weeks ago. And this one as well. I think it was tied at halftime 10-10, something like that. And they were down in third quarter as well and had to come back. It's just not good enough. And, I have very high standards, obviously, because I've seen them win back-to-back national champions. I know they can do better, but my question is, why aren't they? And I'm not exactly sure what the answer is because it just seems to be a mental issue. Like they just come out slow and sluggish and lethargic. And then I guess Kirby, I want to say it's Kirby lays into him, but I mean, for the most part, from what I've heard, Kirby's actually been pretty even keel in the locker rooms this season, which I don't know why, because the team has looked absolutely shit at times. But look, the most important thing is they won the game. They're still undefeated. They're still number one. But I have very high expectations, and even though this team is still winning games, in my opinion, they have not met them or even come close to them personally. I know they can do way better. And I think this Kentucky game is going to be a monitor for what their season will be. It will be another statement game, Garth. Like 2 years ago when they played undefeated teams like Arkansas and Kentucky as well, took them both to the woodshed. Last year, played number 1 Tennessee, took them to the woodshed, destroyed Oregon. We did have some slow games last year, like against Missouri and Kent State, but the problem is it's been more frequent this year, and we haven't had a statement game yet. We haven't had a 49-3 Oregon win to open the season. Not anything even close to that. Yes, we've had blowouts, but it's been against teams like UT Martin, Ball State, and UAB. And the 2 SEC games we played, they were fairly competitive. So, what are your thoughts on this UGA team this season, Guard?
Yeah, well, I'll have some good news coming for all the UGA fans out there later on in the show. Obviously, I don't want to get into my predictions for this week yet because we're not quite there. But yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag of reactions for me, Noah. Obviously, the SEC as a whole is extremely tough. Playing road games like this, going to a place like Missouri or Vanderbilt is one thing. They don't really have like a huge, massive stadium where the crowd plays a huge factor. But honestly, Jordan-Hare is one of the toughest places to play in all the SEC. They have a really, really good home crowd, big, huge stadium. They have one of the biggest capacities in the conference. So I imagine that place was absolutely rocking and the team fed off of it. But like you said, I think really the thing with Georgia so far this season is they haven't shown us like a complete 4-quarter performance like we're used to seeing. It's been a lot of slow first half, and then the second half they kind of flip that switch and pull away and win in the game. Really interesting to me too, like you said, Noah, is the fact that Kirby has been like a lot more reserved, laid back, even keeled. I guess I watched the video a week or two ago where he talked a lot about how he's been working with a sports psychologist, and it's kind of changed his perspective. And it could be a good thing in the long run. It could be a bad thing. Sometimes you do really need that tough coaching and like, hey, you guys need to get your shit together type of rant at you. But we'll see. Like I said, I got good news coming later on in the show, at least in my opinion, but I'll save that for the actual preview section. And then the one last thing other than that, Noah, is Brock Bowers. Absolutely insane. Get him to the Chargers. Justin Herbert needs him. That dude, like I said, obviously we're bitter, heated rivals. I don't exactly root for your team, but I got to acknowledge the fact that Brock Bowers is really that dude. Like, he is so good. Mm-hmm. He's been good for years now. And like I said, get him to the Chargers. Justin Herbert needs this dude on Sundays.
UGA run game is their weakness, and run defense is suspect IMO. I don't think the run game is a weakness. I think they have had some injuries there, and I just don't think they have the players they used to at running game, but I don't think it's been terrible. Like, I think Bell has looked pretty good at points. Dejon Edwards has looked good. I think, honestly, what it is, John, is for some reason, they've been transitioning to more of a pass-happy offense. Like, I think Gary Danielson said a stat last week or something. UGA is running like 75% pass plays on first downs, which for a UGA team is absolutely wild to me because it's a team that's always based around the run. But definitely, I think a little bit of a change in philosophy going from Monken to Bobo. Let's see. There was another. Oh, yes. Has UGA won the over-under at all this year? It was 14 against Auburn, 40 against UAB, 27 against SC. You covered against Ball State barely. Well, John, I don't know if they've covered this season, but I can't think of a game from last season where they covered, which was this one. So, there you go. There you go. They can do something like that if they play their potential, but obviously we still need to see that. Tom says, hello, halftime here from Hillburn, New York. Friday night lights are out. What's up, Tom? How you doing, man?
Tom? Before you know it, you'll be saying halftime from Jacksonville, Florida with Noah and Garth.
Yes, sir. If you guys do not know, in about 19 days, I will be flying down to actually meet Garth and Tom to go to the Florida Georgia game in Jacksonville. And that Friday, or at least I assume it's going to be that Friday, we'll be doing a live show.
First ever in person for Sweet Tea show.
First ever in person. First time we ever meet IRL, so it's going to be great. Bobo is an amazing name, by the way. I agree. I do think it's a good name. Josh Lane says, Boba is a good coordinator. Problem is he gets too predictable sometimes, running up the middle multiple times in a row. So when third down comes, we know we're throwing. That's a good point as well. We do have a lot of third and longs because of, because of how much they pass the ball on first down. If they don't complete it, then all of a sudden 2nd and 10, you're kind of behind the chains a little bit. So I do agree with that. I do want to see him get the run game involved a little bit more as we go along. But Garth, at least my team won their game, even though they looked like absolute shit. You could play like absolute shit and get steamrolled like the Florida Gators did. Now, before I throw this to you, I just want to give you a bit of a shout out because you did all this raving for the first 4 weeks. Oh, this Florida defense looks great, man. Austin Armstrong's the best thing ever. They look so good. They're an elite unit. And then I watched this game, and I'm still waiting for the defense to show up. Like, did they even take the field against Ray Davis? 289 total yards, 4 touchdowns. This was absolutely an embarrassment on all levels. They got absolutely boat raced off the field. Kentucky has now beaten Florida 3 times in a row. They're 3-2, and man, I tell you what, expect this Vandy team to keep it close because this Florida team, especially their defense, they just look absolutely fraudulent this season, Garth. I know they beat Tennessee, but I mean, how much of that is Florida being good, and how much of it is the fact that Joe Milton is like the 2nd worst passer in the SEC this season statistically? We'll see what happens, but man, this was absolutely embarrassing. And I'll tell you what, Devin Leary didn't even do anything this game. Like, yes, there was a drop touchdown pass, so he could have had one of those, but it was really just one player, Ray Davis. They couldn't stop him at all. Multiple 20-plus yard runs. He had, like an 80-yard touchdown run as well. He had a receiving touchdown. I mean, Garth, like, when you were watching this game, you just had to be absolutely humiliated and be wondering, oh, my God, it's like Todd Grantham is back once again. Because, man, what were your takeaways from this game?
Absolutely sickening, honestly, Noah. Like, all joking aside, this is a really tough game to watch. It kind of looked like we had rewinded back to year one because there's a lot of the kind of same things where you're just seeing silly, stupid mistakes, like not enough players on the field, too many players on the field, stupid, costly penalties, being like completely out of position. What it is, too, real quick before I take a deep dive, I do want to say, going back to like your initial point, I agree with you 50%. I do agree with you that it was absolutely embarrassing boat racing performance by UF. However, I do think that UF is actually going to come out angry tomorrow at home against Vandy and beat them. I wouldn't say like an absolute blowout or nothing crazy, but I feel like a 2-score game where it's, the defense plays a lot better. Ironically enough, even though that we got absolutely dismantled in Kentucky, somehow, some way, we're still 13th in the nation in total defense. That's kind of insane to me. I had to look it up because I was curious to see how far we dropped. But yeah, just absolutely sickening, Noah. Here's the thing for me, right? Going into this game, if you had said, hey, Garth, the offense is going to struggle against Kentucky. They're not really going to put up a lot of points or yards, but the defense is going to play good. I would say, you know what? All bias aside, I could totally see that happening. However, if you told me, hey, dude, the defense is literally not going to show up, they might as well stay on the bus, they're going to get spanked by this one dude named Ray Davis, I'd be like, man, you're crazy. There's no way in hell. And what happened? Literally one dude just bulldozed through our entire team. Here's the thing, Noah, right? So a lot of people keep saying that UJ is not going to be able to stop this rushing attack of Kentucky. This is literally the only football game, even despite them playing cupcakes before us, this is literally the only game this year that Ray Davis rushed for over 100 yards. And he had like 280. Rumor is he's still running against Florida right now. Hell, he might even be at Gainesville right now, running on the field, starting there and running up to
He just scored another touchdown. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just it's a head-scratching one, Noah. And the thing is, what I was getting to before I kind of backtracked, under Napier, this team has been very, very two-faced. It's like when we're at home, the team plays really, really well. Even if we do lose, we play really tough and it's like a close, hard-fought game. Then we go on the road and it's like this team cannot play football. We don't know what we're doing. Both sides of the ball struggle outside of like that one Texas A&M game where we beat them, where I think they sucked anyways and like half their team was out to illness or some weird thing like that. The team just – I don't get it. I've never seen anything like this where a team is so good at home but absolutely atrocious on the road. It's very concerning for me. And also, too, the other thing I'll say, and a lot of Florida fans feel the same way, obviously nothing happens in the middle of the season, but for the love of God, come this offseason, Billy Napier, Florida, open up your pockets, swallow your pride, go out there and hire a great, great offensive coordinator, whoever is the best name that you can get. Doesn't matter if you have to back up the Brinks trucks, do it, especially when we have a guy like DJ Lagway coming in and being – unless he ends up being an absolute bust, what should be like the future great quarterback for Florida. So, yeah, that's kind of my summary of it. Noah, like I said, just super frustrating. It's like, hey, we played, except for outside of the first half of the Utah game, we played really good football. We go up there to Kentucky, get absolutely spanked. And one thing that I saw a lot from like the Florida fan pages, Noah, is kind of what Kentucky has done under Stoops is be this like really disciplined – physical football team that's really good on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They run the football really well. Their defense is smothering and, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. They make you earn it. That's kind of like the exact same recipe that Billy Napier wants to bring to Florida, but Mark Stoops is way more established there in Kentucky. And we just, honestly, quite frankly, Noah, they were way more physical. They bullied us on the football field. We did not go toe-to-toe with them in the physicality department, and that's why they were able to just run the football at will on us.
Well, Garth, speaking of the offensive coordinator thing, I will say, just to kind of give you, a little bit of a shining light at the end of the tunnel, Iowa's offensive coordinator probably will be available after the season if you want to go out and get him.
You know what? I feel like there's very, very few instances where we could physically become worse. Hiring Iowa's offensive coordinator would be like the one exception.
Hey man, they're good. They're good for about 100 a game. Granted, it's only total yards, not points. But Florida does have White Odell Beckham. Yeah, good old Pearsall, man.
Yep, Pearsall.
But all right, that's enough of reviewing games. We're gonna get into our predictions now, real quick before we get into it. Disclaimer once again: we are not professional bettors. It's not even legal in our states. We do this for fun. If you're looking to us for betting advice, you're looking in the wrong place. And also, if our picks suck, we don't care. And we don't care if you care. We just do this for fun. So there you go. Now, scoring reminder, if you guys have forgotten, you can get a total of 3 points per game. If you pick the favorite correctly, you get 1 point. If you correctly pick the cover, you get 1 point. If you just pick an underdog outright, you get 2 points. And then over-under correct, you get 1 point. So we'll do a quick recap of the standings. And we started the season off terribly outright, Garth, but we actually have had back-to-back winning weeks. So now I'm up to 22-17 outright. I got 58 total points. And for you, 23-16 outright and 61 points. So you're up 3 points on me, which is the equivalent of one game. Still very close for right now.
So far, honestly.
Yeah, very neck and neck. I do not want another freaking Florida Gators punishment, so hopefully I can get a good week going here. But we'll start with this one. The team we were just talking about. This is not the right thing. Oh, this is that glitch banner. I'm going to get into this a little bit later when we do our Sean of the Week. This is that banner I literally cannot delete because it says no stable internet connection, even though I can literally delete any other banner. So we'll move right on from that. Where's the Florida one? I'll just go ahead and do the Florida one because I already did that little segue. Vanderbilt at Florida. Florida getting 18.5, over under a 51.5. Here's an interesting stat for you, Garth. Florida leads the series 43-11-2, and they've won 30 of the last 32. But they did lose last year on the road, 31-24.
Actually, fun fact, Noah. Do you know who was the running back last year for Vanderbilt when we did
I do. It was Ray Davis.
Yep. That
they
dude is like kryptonite, I think, honestly.
Apparently. But I guess actually, you know what? Just to be different, I guess I'll go first on this one. Just because why not? Let's see. I'll go Florida to win. Obviously, I think Florida is going to rebound after that absolute embarrassment from last week. Cover, I do think 18.5 is It's a little high, in my opinion. Now, if Florida had come off a convincing win, I can understand it, but they looked like absolute crap against Kentucky. And, I know Vanderbilt's crap as well. But, I mean, could this game be like a 34-20 maybe? So I'd say Vanderbilt could probably barely cover, but I think it's right around there personally. As for over under 51.5, I think Florida has a good defense. So at least overall, obviously they didn't look good last week. Vanderbilt is not good at all. Real question for me for this over under is how much is the Florida offense going to do against the Vanderbilt defense? In my opinion, Vanderbilt doesn't have a very good defense, so I'd probably go with the over on this one, but it's close again.
Yeah, so for me, Noah, on this one, obviously Florida to win outright because, like I mentioned just a little bit ago, this team under Napier at home has played really, really well. It's been when we go on the road where we just absolutely forget how to play football and look like a completely different football team. So I do have us winning outright. I think the spread is just slightly too high. I see us winning by right in like the 14 to 17 point, like 2 touchdowns, maybe a field goal if we're playing really, really well to make it that 17 point. But I think 18.5 is a little bit too high. Mm-hmm. Over under is the trickiest one for me at 51.5 because I do expect the defense to play really well. I'm not super high on Vandy and them going up to the swamp here in Gainesville and putting up a lot of points. So, and obviously offense is not our strength either. Even if we won something like 28-20, 31-20 is literally right there. I'm like right on the edge. I guess I'll go with the under because I could see us, like I said, scoring 28-31 and keeping them at somewhere in that like 17 to 20 point range. So I'm going to slightly go with the under on this one.
All right, so Garth and I both have Florida winning, Vandy covering, and I got the over. He's got the under. John says I got Florida by 17, and is Vandy bot going to be there? I guess we'll have to see, man. We'll see. Next game. So let me go all the way back up here. We got this is an interesting matchup. I have no clue what to think of this matchup, honestly. LSU getting 5.5 on the road against Missouri, over under 63.5. LSU now 3-2 after that loss last week to Ole Miss. Missouri 5-0. If you told me that was happening for the season, I would have said turn your PS5 or turn your PS3 or Xbox 360 off, man, because you're clearly playing a video game. But it's happened. Missouri leads the series 2-1. LSU defense has been terrible, obviously, and Brady Cook from Missouri has been phenomenal. Completes 74.5% of his passes, 11 pass TDs, no interceptions. This is a good team, in my opinion. They did beat Kansas State on the road. They beat a previously undefeated Memphis team, but I still think this is their biggest test. I know LSU has looked terrible, but I don't know, man. I still have this gut feeling about Missouri. I think they're good, but I don't know if they're a team that's good enough that they can beat a team like LSU. Start with you on this one. Where are you leaning with this game? Because this is tough.
This one's so tough for me. Missouri has looked really, really good. The offense led by Brady Cook's phenomenal performance. Fun fact, Eli Drinkowitz did finally go out this past offseason, hire an offensive coordinator. He stepped down from playing calling responsibilities. And all of a sudden they go from a team who was primarily carried by like a good rushing attack and a solid defense to a team that can really air the ball out. And they have beat some quality opponents. They're at home. The issue with me in this one, Noah, is I feel like this is literally a make it or break it game for the LSU Tigers. Like if they lose this one, they're absolutely finished this season. 3-3 and definitely going to be unranked should they lose. Whereas if they win, all of a sudden they have a quality road win against a ranked opponent. They're 4-2, 3-1 in conference play, So I feel like this is a game where LSU just finds a way to survive and edge it out. I don't think they're going in there and blowing out Mizzou by any means. I think it will be a close one, but I got LSU winning. 5.5 is really tough because it's not quite a touchdown and it's still more than a field goal. I feel like it'll be a touchdown game, so I don't think that they quite cover. And then the over under, 63.5. It's right there as well. Yeah, I'll go with the over on this one because I think both these teams have really, really good offenses. Missouri's defense is not anywhere near as bad as LSU's, but I'll take the over in this one. LSU winning outright, and Mizzou doesn't quite cover because I do think LSU wins by like one touchdown.
Now let's see. LSU +8, Missouri by 9. I got the Tigers winning. Book it. There's the correct answer, Josh. Good job. It took me way too long to get this. Yeah, this is tough, man. This is really tough for me. I'm just looking at Missouri's defense this season. They're 42nd in the nation, which is solid. Offense 54th, even though they're averaging 32 points per game. Brady Cook has been good, and like you said, I think the the offensive coordinator hires looked pretty good for them. So I guess we're saying Drinkwitz is now better than Billy Napier as well. He's about the 5th best coach in the SEC East at this rate. But I don't know. I mean, Missouri gave up 27 to Kansas State, 27 to Memphis, and 21 to Vanderbilt. So it's not quite like this is a shutdown defense either, as terrible as LSU's is. I'll start with the easy part first. I definitely agree with you. I think this is an over type of game. I think 63.5 is very low. I think it's going to be more into the 70s unless, Missouri is able to really slow down the LSU offense. I don't think LSU will be able to slow down Missouri much. If Brady Cook, unless he has a terrible game, he's looked phenomenal this season. LSU has no defense at all. Outright winner. See, I think like you said, it is a do or die game for LSU and Missouri. I don't know what to think of them. I know they're undefeated, but like in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking it's Missouri, and I don't know if I can quite buy in just yet. Now, if they do beat LSU and they're 6-0 and they're already bowl eligible, I'd probably have to say okay. Yeah, this team has made a statement. But for right now, I'm probably still going to give it to LSU. It is a close matchup. The cover is tough. I'm probably going to say no as well. I think it's probably a touchdown game, probably like a 38-31, maybe something like that. But I will pick LSU barely. I would not be surprised if Missouri won because of how bad LSU's defense is, but I'll probably give a slight edge to LSU here. Moving on to the next game. Oh, this is one Andrew's going to be absolutely fired up for. We got the Washington State Cougars at number 13 getting 3.5 against UCLA. 60.5 is the over-under. UCLA's defense has actually looked pretty good this season, Garth. And they're looking to slow down Cam Ward, who kind of like I mentioned earlier in the show, 3rd in passing and total offense in the nation. This offense has been absolutely incredible. They diced up Oregon State. He's probably the best team they've played so far. They looked really good. On their side, I do really like Dante Moore, a UCLA quarterback. But like we said earlier, I don't understand why UCLA is the favorite in this game. I do think it'd be close, especially at the Rose Bowl. But Washington State, man, put some respect on the Cougs. I'm not even going to waste much time on this one. I got Washington State winning this game. UCLA, actually, they went outright, so I don't even have to worry about the cover. And as for the over-under, I like both quarterbacks in this game, 60.5. It's a tough one. I think it's kind of right there. It's probably like a 31-27, maybe something like that type of game. So I'd probably say slightly under, but I do think it's close. I could definitely see it going over barely.
Yeah, like you said, no, put some damn respect on the Washington State Cougars. They've looked really, really good this year. Both sides of the football, too, honestly. This isn't a team that's just gone out and had a really, really good offense, and the defense has just coasted by. Their defense has been surprisingly good and one of the better units in the Pac-12. UCLA, Dante Moore's been impressive. The defense has improved. I can't buy into a UCLA football team until they kind of like absolutely force me to have to. And like I said, I'm really high on Washington State right now. I do like Washington State to win outright. The over-under of 60.5 is really, really tough, like you said. My gut says to agree with you, Noah, and go slightly under because, like you said, I could see this being like a 30-21 game, like a 31-24, right in that range where it just slightly falls below it, even though this is the Pac-12. But both teams have really good defensive units, and I think that's why I feel that way.
So we're 3 for 3 on that one. We're also 3 for 3 on the LSU Mizzou game. Andrew says UCLA overperformed last year. Washington State by 12, says John. Moving on to the next game. This is another one that I'm not quite so sure what to think about. Number 11, Alabama getting 2.5, over under 46.5 on the road against Texas A&M. Alabama leads the series 12-3, but I will say under Jimbo, A&M typically keeps it pretty close against Alabama. Beat them a couple years ago in 2021, and both teams trying to look, to take control of the SEC West, which is kind of crazy, Garth, considering how both teams lost in week 2 to Texas and Miami, respectively. But LSU kind of looks like they might be in a little bit of a tailspin. It is in Texas A&M at Kyle Field, so that's another advantage for them. Alabama has looked pretty good lately, but A&M as well. Start with you on this one. What are you thinking about this matchup?
This one's so tough, Noah, because there are just so many things that go into this one for me, factors-wise. Texas A&M is at home because of the stakes of this game, both teams being 4-1. Alabama, despite that loss to Texas early, still ranked number 11 in the country. That place is going to be sold out. It is going to be rocking. That Kyle Field is hands down one of the best atmospheres in all of college football. The last time that these two teams played, and I'll never forget this for the rest of my life, one of the media guys up in the media booth, so Grant, all the way at the top of the stadium, behind thick glass, he posted a video to his Twitter where he had a cup of water on kind of like the countertop that was in front of him for where he was sitting. And the water was doing the rippling effect, just like in Jurassic Park. And I'm like, good Lord, that's how you know that place is rocking. Like you said, Texas A&M always plays Bama tough, whether they win or lose. Jimbo is one of the few assistants that has been able to beat Nick Saban. On the other side of things, Alabama, this is kind of that point in the season where they start figuring out their personnel. Saban kind of gets the ball rolling. They start playing the kind of football that you're used to seeing them play. But at the same time, they look very vulnerable so far this year. They have not looked like Bama teams of the past. Man, this is probably – this one and the Texas-Oklahoma one are easily the hardest ones for me to pick. I think because Jimbo has already beat Saban once, and it's so hard in the first place to even beat him as a former assistant, let alone do it twice. I think I'm ever so slightly going to lean Alabama in a super close game that comes right down to the wire. The spread is tough. 2.5 is like
really tough, yeah.
I feel like this is a field goal game, maybe a touchdown, so I don't think that they cover. Or sorry, they do cover, rather, because they're going to win by either 3 or 7. And then the over-under 46.5. 24-20 wouldn't beat it. 24-21 wouldn't beat it. I think I'm going to go, just barely on the over, because I could see something like 28-24 final.
This is tough. A&M. The A&M defense is number 4 with 20 sacks. Bama is the 125th defense, allowing 20 sacks allowed. Yes.
Sorry, one thing I meant to mention and totally forgot about it. Texas A&M is still starting Max Johnson, which if you guys do not remember, he is the dude who struggled mightily for them last year and got benched. Granted, he's another year more experienced. He's looked better and limited snaps that we've seen from him since he took over the job. Still, I can't fully buy into him. That was one other thing that was going through my brain.
Josh says A&M by 7, Bama by 11 plus. I don't know if this game ever gets past one possession for either team. I think it's going to be very close. Of course, anything could happen. One of these teams could have a statement game. But for me, it's tough. So like you said, I think Max Johnson's looked good this season. But, I think the jury's still kind of out for him. Alabama, I think their defense has looked pretty good. The past couple of weeks, they have, I think, the number 14th defense in the nation in points against. So they're getting going. I just don't know about their quarterback. I think Miller has an absolute bazooka arm. There are moments where he looks incredible. And then there are moments where, I just don't even know what he's doing. This is still the team guard that 3 weeks ago was struggling against a team like USF. And, they were struggling against Ole Miss in the first half before Ole Miss kind of collapsed. So To be honest, I'm not quite sure what to think of either of these teams. I think, it's just this is really a toss-up game for me, honestly. But I guess, gun to my head, if I had to absolutely pick, A&M has shown they can beat Alabama, especially at home. Alabama does have question marks on their team. If Max Johnson can have a good game, but most importantly, if they can hold up front, and like John said, if they can get pressure on Jalen Milroe, this is what Texas was able to do. They could not pass block at all against Texas. Texas dominated the line of scrimmage. If A&M can win the line of scrimmage, I do think they can win this game. And for that reason, I almost always pick Alabama. And I was honestly before the show thinking I was going to pick Alabama, but against probably my better judgment, this might end up costing me. I will actually pick A&M to win this game outright. As for the over-under, 46.5. Can I just say, by the way, other than like one game, these over-unders this week are absolute bitches. Like, they're literally like right in the ballpark of what I think every game will kind of be. 46.5. It's tough because I think both defenses has shown they can be pretty good this season. Both offenses have question marks. I think it really depends on what kind of game Max Johnson has. It could be, like a 28-24, maybe, which would go over. So I probably agree with you on this one, Garth, and say it'll go over. But I do agree with you. I think it is pretty close. Next game. This one it isn't quite as big a game, but still a decent matchup. UCF getting 1.5, going on the road to face Kansas. Over under of 63.5. UCF is still looking for their first Big 12 victory against a team that I don't think the 40-14 score against Texas quite highlighted what the game was. I think that, the first 2.5 quarters were actually pretty close. Kansas was keeping it close. And all of a sudden that Texas talent took over, man. That's a really good team. And they ended up, boat racing in the second half pretty much. But I think this Kansas team's had some good fight. And UCF, not quite sure what to think of them. This is a home game for Kansas. UCF is the slight favorite. So I don't know. This is another tough one. There's some tough matchups this week, man. But I guess gun to my head once again, I'll probably pick Kansas to barely win this game outright. Over under. I think this could be a shootout type of game in my opinion. So I'll probably go over on the 63.5. But once again, I think it's kind of right there. What are you thinking about this matchup?
Yeah, so like you said, I'm not really quite sure to make a UCF so far in the season. They've had a couple of good games. They've also struggled mightily. I think they're still kind of adjusting to being in a much tougher conference than they were there in the American. Kansas has actually looked pretty darn good, honestly. Like you said, they played Texas really, really tough, honestly, until Texas pulled away in that second half. The game was, a lot closer than people might have thought. Actually, I'm trying to remember. Did Daniels get injured in that game?
I think he did.
I think he might have. And I don't know. I guess I need to see. Is Jalen Daniels supposed to play in this game?
I see an ESPN article that says he's likely out. Jason Bean's starting. I don't really know who that is, but
yeah, I would say honestly, Noah, if Daniels were playing at quarterback, because he is an absolute stud and a large reason of why they were right there with Texas for part of that game, because he's so good both with his arm passing and also taking off and running. But with him out, I'm very, very slightly leaning towards UCF because it still is on the road. I do think Kansas is a good team, but I feel like I always pick against UCF or root against them. I feel like this is a game where I finally got to kind of swallow my I think hatred's a little bit too strong of a word, but my dislike towards them and pick them to win this one. 1.5, man. Like, come on with these like really, really small spreads.
Yeah.
I think they cover because, come on, even a safety beats that. I do think that they cover that. And then the over under 63.5. I don't think that That's tough.
Mhm.
Kansas honestly has scored a lot in all their games outside of Texas, and obviously being on the road with Daniels getting hurt doesn't exactly make you be shocked that they didn't. UCF also outside of Boise State has scored a lot of points every game this year. I think for that reason, I'm gonna go with the under actually. Now that I think about it, I think it's gonna be just barely under.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. Now, I will say, even though Daniel probably is out, backup Jason Bean, he has thrown 550 career passes, so it's not like they're just putting, some true freshman out. He does have some experience going up against a UCF defense that is pretty. I think I remember reading they were like 42nd ranked, so they're not bad, but they're not elite any means either. So I do think it could kind of be around that.
What is
6, 3.5.
crazy is I think they actually have one of the best offenses in the nation, despite being 3-2.
Yeah.
I want to say they were like fourth or fifth. I could pull it up here real quick. Yes, fifth on the year in total offense, actually just slightly ahead of Washington State.
There you go. It could very well be a shootout then. Let's see. We got 3 more games to go. All of these games have 2 ranked teams in them, so we'll start with this one. Number 10 Notre Dame going on the road to face the undefeated Louisville Cardinals. How about 3-0 in the ACC as well? Definitely under the radar a bit when everyone's focusing on teams like FSU or Duke. They've been really good. Notre Dame getting 6.5 over under 53.5. Notre Dame seeking their 31st consecutive victory against ACC opponents. That stat kind of shocked me when I read that, but I guess when you consider how many ACC teams they actually play, I guess it's a little less surprising. Now, an interesting thing I want to see here, Louisville has played against Sam Hartman before in the past because he was obviously at Wake Forest. So this is a guy they do know a little bit about. Louisville is at home. Interested to see what you think about this score. John says upset Louisville by 13. I don't know about that.
The upset train.
He loves the upsets. I do think Louisville could win. I don't know if they win by 13, though. That seems like a little bit much. I guess I'll go first on this one. Like I said, I think Notre Dame has looked very balanced this season. I think their offense, for the most part, has looked good. Yes, they've had games like the past 2 weeks where they've had to rely more on their defense, but then their defense comes through as well. I think Sam Hartman's an absolute stud. He's just an absolute beast. Even if he hasn't shown as much the last 2 weeks, we all know what this guy can do when he's given the opportunity to succeed. I think that Louisville has been solid, but I've been impressed with Notre Dame, man. And look, I know they lost to Ohio State, but again, Ohio State's a really good team, and it still came down to the last play of the game pretty much. So probably gonna. I swear to God, I'm not even joking. I put in Ohio when I was typing it in the Google Doc because I was thinking of Ohio State when I typed it. But I'll go with Notre Dame in this one. I will say 6.5. I'd say Louisville probably does cover. It's probably like a field goal type of game. Over under. Probably go with the under, honestly. I think 53.5 is a little bit high. What are you thinking about this one?
Yeah. The thing with me, Noah, with Louisville in recent history and kind of my experience from an outside point of view, following them loosely, watching some of their games here and there, I feel like they're one of those teams that has like really, really good spurts where all of a sudden they gain attention. They've strung together some wins. Usually they have an electric guy at quarterback with some of the guys that they've had there, obviously, in recent years. But it's like every time they get into a big-time matchup where all the lights are on them, they're on center stage, people are starting to talk about them, it's like they fall apart. And also, too, Notre Dame, honestly, is a very good football team. They've shown that they can win when their offense plays really, really well and puts up a lot of points and yards. They've also shown that they can win with their defense. And even though Ohio State, barely squeaked that one out, the defense still played really, really well and took them right to the wire. And honestly, they kind of let that one get away. But nonetheless, I'm still high on this Notre Dame football team, at least playing up against a team like Louisville. It is on the road. Louisville is undefeated. But I think Notre Dame's got too much talent. They're too complete of a team on both sides of the football. Against a team like Louisville, I do like Notre Dame to win. I think it'll probably be anywhere in, I'd say like 2 touchdown range, win by 2 touchdowns right in there. So I do like them to cover that. Over under 53.5 is tough. I think I'll go with the over on that. I think that see something like 28-17, 28-21, something in there. So I do like the over on this one.
All right, next one. And I'm obviously going to go first on this one. Number 20, Kentucky, in a battle of two 5-0 teams going on the road to Athens to face the number 1 Georgia Bulldogs. And like I mentioned multiple times, UJ still looking to put together their first 4-quarter complete performance at home against a team coming off a very convincing win, granted against pretty poor competition. But, man, I'll start with the easy part. I think Georgia does win this game. I think it'll be close, but I think at home is big. If it was in Lexington, I'd honestly probably be tempted to pick Kentucky, especially if UG had another slow start. But because it's at home, we've seen the past couple of years, like even when guys, are doubting UGA, if they have these home games, like against undefeated Arkansas, against undefeated Kentucky 2 years ago, when people thought that Kentucky would keep that close, when they played Tennessee last season, they destroyed all of those teams, okay? Georgia at home is different than Georgia on the road. Now, yes, they did struggle against South Carolina at home, but they completely dominated the first half, or the second half, excuse me. Honestly, they could have scored more. They just kind of mailed it in the fourth quarter, just started running the ball and playing defense. UGA will win this game, and I think they will finally have a more complete performance. However, I do think Kentucky will cover. I think 14.5. UGA has not been good against the spread this season, so especially if they have another slow start in the first quarter, I think Kentucky can cover. Over under 47.5, I think is way too low. It's not even close. I think it'll be an over game. I think UGA can exploit the Kentucky defense, and Kentucky can, have a decent running game against our front seven. The only thing I'd be concerned about is, and another reason I think UGA wins this game, Devin Leary is not a good this season at all. He's turned it over so many times. His passing, yardage numbers are very low. Completion percentage very low. This is kind of like another Peyton Thorne we're playing, to where if Kentucky stays in this game, I think it's going to be because of their running game. It's not going to be because of their quarterback, because he has not looked good this season. And if they become one-dimensional, and something they didn't do enough against Auburn, and I want to see them do against Kentucky, they need to bring more men in the box. Get 8 men in the box. Dare this team to beat you throwing the football, because if you can shut down Kentucky's running game, I don't think Devin Leary will be enough for them to pass them back into the game. As for the other side, Carson Beck, I think, has overall looked good. I know a lot of people love to hate on him. I don't really get it. I think he's looked pretty good for the most part. I'd be more concerned about our offensive line up front. I think they've been very inconsistent. I think the skills positions, the wideouts have been pretty good, especially obviously Brock Bowers. He's an absolute animal. If we can get the running game going, stay balanced, I want to see us run the ball more on first down. I want to see Mike Bobo get a little less predictable with passing the ball on first down. And I do think I'll win this game. And I'll tell you what, Garth, and this is something I know even you'll agree with. UGA plays the best when people doubt him the most. And what have I seen all week? I see people saying, Kentucky's going to upset Georgia. Georgia's going to lose. Georgia's been shit. Blah, 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 blah. But they're still undefeated, and they're at home against a team that they have a very good record against, by the way. Georgia absolutely owns Kentucky. Okay, their series is not even remotely close, even when Kentucky's been good the past years. Georgia wins this game.
Yeah, I'm about to hype up some Georgia fans out there, Noah, because I like and agree with a lot of what you said. Real quick, because I got a lot to say about this one, but real quick before I dive into it, I do need to step away for just 1 second. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up this crowd play ad, and then I'm going to get a lot of Georgia football fans out there hyped up. And if you're a Kentucky fan, stay tuned is all I'll say. Right. So like I said, no, I do agree with a lot of what you said in this one. A lot of people are like, hey, Georgia has looked inconsistent this year. They haven't looked that great. If they play like they did against Auburn, Kentucky's going to come in there and probably win quite easily. Here's what I say to all those people, Noah. This game is in Athens, Georgia. It's a night game. It's going to be sold out. It's going to be rocking one of the best atmospheres in all the SEC. This isn't a noon game against a nobody school that nobody's really that fired up about. This is an undefeated, ranked Kentucky football team, prime time, under the lights. That place is going to be sold out, 99% Georgia fans. Quite frankly, Kentucky's in for a rude awakening in this one because, like you said, Devin Leary has not looked good. They cannot win this football game passing. I just do not see it happening. His yards per game aren't good. His completion percentage isn't good. He's turned the ball over a lot. Like I said earlier in the show, Ray Davis, yes, he absolutely boat raced us, but outside of our game, he has not had a 100-yard rushing performance all season long against a bunch of cupcakes. And obviously this Georgia defense is very, very good, especially when playing at home. Like you said, key on the run, make them beat you through the air, which I think they're going to do because they're going to have a good game plan put together for this one. Load the box up, shut down the run, make them one-dimensional. And two, I feel like this is probably the game where Georgia finally has that complete performance where they get off firing all cylinders right away. They don't have a super slow half. It doesn't take them till the second half or late in the game to finally pull away. Kentucky does not have the playmakers at wide receiver that they've had in the past. And I think their defense is still pretty good, but it's not elite by any means. I do have Georgia winning this one. I'm kind of right at that spread where it's going to be like a 14 to 21 point game. I don't know exactly where it falls. My gut says Georgia by 17. So I guess I am going to take them to cover and then over under 47.5. Like you said, I think that's too low. So I will go with the over as well.
Hang on. Before I do that, got a comment. Give me Kentucky by 7. Look, we know John's a UGA hater at this point because he picked Oregon to beat UGA last season, and that did not go very well for him. But I got a fun fact for you here, Garth. So the last time, first of all, UGA they've won 13 straight against Kentucky. They have a 31-4-2 home record against Kentucky. The last time UGA lost at home to Kentucky, Garth, was 2009. Can you guess what year was the time before that they lost at home to Kentucky?
Oh, God, it's got to be way back. I'm just going to randomly throw out a year, 1978.
1977.
Holy
right
crap.
There. Yeah, they do well against Kentucky at home, man. So hopefully it can continue. But obviously this Kentucky team is pretty good. Again, I would not be surprised, especially at a slow start if we did lose. But I think it's time for a statement game. And like you said, this isn't some podunk school that they're playing where they can just kind of mail it in. And, like even South Carolina. Like South Carolina was not ranked. They had already lost a game. This isn't the same level of atmosphere, and it is a night game, like you said. It's not, a 3 o'clock or 12 noon kickoff, blah, blah, blah. It's a big game for them. So hopefully they'll come out and finally have that complete game.
You're going to see all those guys, the Spike Squad? The guys with the shoulder pads on, they're going to be wound up, and you'll see them on the camera like 62 times over the course of the broadcast.
Now, Garth, we saved the best for last. This is, in my opinion, easily the best matchup this week, and it's not even close. Number 3, Texas. Both of these teams undefeated, getting 5.5 against number 11, Oklahoma. 60.5 the over-under. This game is at the Cotton Bowl. It is the, 119th meeting of the Red River Rivalry, which Texas leads 63-50-5. And like I said earlier, first time since 2011 that both teams have been undefeated coming into this matchup, Garth. I'll start on this one, actually. It is tough, but my gut is saying I've liked a lot of what I've seen from both of these teams, but I really like what Brent Venables is doing to this Oklahoma defense. He's actually made it to where Oklahoma has a pretty balanced team for once, which we usually don't expect from them. Most of the time, it seems like they're very offensive focused and their defense can't stop anybody. But this year, their defense has actually looked pretty good for the most part. The most points they've given up in a game is 20, and that was against Iowa State. Other than that, they've gotten a shutout, 11 against SMU, 17 against Tulsa, 6 in Cincinnati. Yes, you could say, strength of opponent or whatever, but I mean, I've still seen games where Oklahoma's playing teams you wouldn't really consider very good and still give up points. Also, Dylan Gabriel at quarterback is an absolute animal. In fact, Garth, this season, he's statistically better than Quinn Ewers, has more passing yards, more passing touchdowns. I believe he has less interceptions as well. Both of these teams have really good offenses. But in my opinion, I think Oklahoma probably has a better defense, and I think they have a better coach as well. I think Sark has done a good job, but we've seen enough from the past few years that I'm still not 100% sold on them. I think I'm going to go Oklahoma on this one, but I think it's very close. I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. I have Oklahoma winning outright, though. As for the over-under, I'm going to go with the under. I think this is going to be a more defensive game than people might expect. I think Texas also has a pretty good defense, even though I think Oklahoma's is a little bit better. I expect a good quarterback matchup, but I think Dylan Gabriel probably just barely edges it. I really like what I've seen from him. He's so accurate. He takes care of the football. I love Quinn Ewers as well, but I probably give a slight edge to Gabriel so far. I think he's not quite in that top 3 for the Heisman, but I think he's been a top 5 kind of player this season. He's been absolutely incredible. So give me Oklahoma in this one.
Yeah, you honestly kind of took all the thoughts out of my mind for this one. First, I'll say I would not be shocked if both of us were wrong. But I do ever so slightly like Oklahoma in this one. I think their defense has been very, very good this year. The little bit I've seen of them is they're a good defense, but they get especially stingy in the red zone. They don't give up a lot of touchdowns. They either make you get greedy, go for it, turn you over on downs, or they hold you to field goals. Texas's defense is also a lot better than it's been in years past, but I think I give the edge to Oklahoma in that category. Offensive-wise, both teams absolutely fantastic offensively. Oklahoma statistically is better, and I do like their quarterback situation a little bit better as well. And also, too, Gabriel is the more experienced of the two because it feels like this is a guy who's been in college for 6 seasons now. No knock on him. That's obviously a benefit to him because he's experienced. He's going to be poised. He's played in big games. He's seen a lot of different defensive looks. And Venables is a fantastic coach. So, yeah, I do ever so slightly lean towards Oklahoma in this one, Noah. Obviously to win outright. And then the over-under of 60. Man, it's literally right there. Most of the games have been tonight. It's right there where I see this game going. I think I'm gonna go with the over because I could see it being 34-31. I think it's gonna be high 20s to low 30s and just barely make the over on this one.
Well, we'll see. It is a close game, like you said. John says, "Give me Texas by 6." Could definitely see that. I think it's kind of in that one possession.
The other thing too for me, Noah, is as good as Texas's offense has been this year, they have still had a lot of issues with wide receivers dropping balls or kind of disappearing here and there. And that could come back to bite them in this one. This is one of those games where you cannot afford to make any kind of mistakes.
Well, that's all the predictions we got for this week. We did 8 games this week because there weren't quite as many. And if I added more, it just I feel it would have watered it down personally. So we got 8 games, so we'll see what happens this week. That's going to do it for all our content for the show. Besides, of course, we have our Sean of the Week segment. In case you don't have one, Garth, I'll go ahead and start on this one. So, like I said earlier, the Sean of the Week is StreamYard because we have this fucking glitched banner that I made last week for a show we couldn't do. Literally cannot delete it because, like I said, so this is the Florida at Kentucky banner I made for last week. Every time I try to delete this, Garth, I even tried it today. I tried it 5 minutes ago. Having trouble connecting. Please check your internet connection. My internet connection is fucking fine. Okay, we're doing this show. I can delete every other banner. We were literally playing Warhammer last night, which is an online multiplayer game. This banner is like Thanos. It's inevitable. I move it up to the very top so I don't accidentally click on it. What do you know? It somehow moves all the way back down to where I accidentally clicked on it earlier in the show because I thought it was the freaking Vanderbilt banner. But nope, this banner right here is the one. Cannot delete it. It's probably going to be here for the rest of time unless it somehow becomes unglitched. StreamYard, what are you doing, man? I don't want this banner anymore, but literally cannot delete it at all. So it's gonna be here. I think I have tried to edit it, but I'll go ahead and do it real quick. See if that does anything. All right, I edited it, and nope, having trouble connecting. Please check your net connection. It is impossible to edit it as well. Sean Dawkins has hacked into the StreamYard servers and completely glitched that banner out. So it's probably going to be here for the rest of the time. So that is my Sean of the week. Come on, StreamYard. What are you doing, man?
It's always something with technology. It could be a combination of Sean Dawkins and also possibly the guy from EA, Rafiki or Rafish or whatever his name was.
Yeah, it take me 5 months to log in my account.
For me, for Sean of the week, I probably have more than just this one, but off the top of my head, the one that comes to mind, and go figure, it's another work-related thing. Because my work never fails. It's like being inside of a fucked up reality TV show 24/7. He actually has not been stinking lately. I will give him props before I give him Sean of the week. He's been better about not stinking. The big, formerly really stinky guy out back in the parts warehouse, basically all day, every day, he would just be back there at kind of his like desk set up in the back of the warehouse where he's got a computer and all that stuff for what's supposed to be to do his job. But he would be sitting there kind of lounged back in the computer chair with his belly hanging out, watching anime and like playing various games on his phone. I don't know if it was my boss, my direct boss, caught on that he has been doing this whole time, or if maybe somebody above him happened to catch the behavior and was like, hey, you have to address this. This cannot be happening. Like, what the hell is this guy doing? Not really sure. But nonetheless, the camera that's in the back that was pointing at the door to come in and out of the parts warehouse to most likely prevent theft in the case that it did happen or some kind of crazy accident happened, since that's a loading bay area, has been adjusted so that it literally points directly at this guy in his computer setup. And he was told, hey, man, you got to get it together. No more just sitting back there and watching anime and playing on your phone all day instead of doing your job.
Yeah, Garth already told me about this last night, and man, I was fucking dying. So that's why I didn't react much this time. But yeah, this guy, man, he's honestly the new Sean. Like, he is the new Sean. So you know
what's really ironic is he loves for me to tell him all my like classic Sean stories. But as time goes on and he's been there longer and longer, he kind of like keeps repeating the same type of
Sean behaviors.
Yeah, exactly.
Except he actually has common sense, unlike Sean, so he doesn't really have.
Right, Sean did it out of total lack of common sense. He's doing it out of complete like laziness and no urge to do things the right way.
See any coaches on the hot seat after this week? You give VT coach another year to try to turn things around. Memphis actually looks pretty good. Yeah. I don't think anyone will be on. The only one I could really think of is if LSU lost again. I wouldn't say they'd fire him, but like if LSU's 3-3 after what they did last season, I don't think that'd be a good look on Brian Kelly. San Diego State could be on that list by the end of the year. Don't get him on the forklift. Yeah, I don't want him to. Hang on, where is it? I still got it. This picture is literally never being deleted as long as we do this show. There it is. Don't do that, man. Don't want another $5,000 repair, okay? But yeah, that's gonna do it for the show. Absolutely incredible show. Garth and I are gonna get off here to game it up for a little bit before we go to bed. You got anything to say before we kind of wrap it up here for the night?
Yeah, actually, I do. I don't know his name, so I do apologize for that. But one guy who could potentially be, maybe not just after this week, because they do have like a really tough road game that they in every right should lose. But as the season goes on, pay close attention to the Virginia Tech head coaching spot, because that's a program that's been really, really down in the dumps in recent history. And this year they're 2-3 right now. Most likely after this week, 2-4. You know, if they miss bowl eligibility altogether, only win like another game or two, I could very well see the Virginia Tech head coach and ended up being fired.
Yeah, that's probably a good one. I mean, they did go 3-8 last year as well, so he definitely has had a bit of a rough go of it. So we'll see. And like you said, they do go on the road to face FSU this week. So probably going to be 2-4. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. And John, you are right. Hockey is back. We did our first hockey podcast Wednesday night.
When you guys see us back next week for Sweet Tea, the regular season will have begun.
Yep, the regular season begun, and Pittsburgh's underachieving will have already begun, giving up 10 goals a game with Eric Carlson on the back line. But regardless, that's going to do it for another episode of Sweet Tea here on the Sports Box. You guys killed it tonight with the likes and comments. Appreciate that. Like we said so many times, if it weren't for you guys, we'd just be, two guys just kind of awkwardly talking to each other the entire time. So you guys help make the show what it is. Keep it up. We love having you guys here. But until next week, from myself, Noah Dog Diabler, and my co-host and good buddy, Guard Charger Patrick, this has been another episode of the Sweet Tea Show here in the Sports Box. Until next week, stay safe, enjoy your college football, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching this episode of Sweet Tea on the Sports Box. Please remember to follow us on all of our social media outlets. On Facebook at Sportsbox Show, Twitter at Sportsbox Show, Instagram at The Sportsbox Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hamilton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And also our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 free points. Thank you for joining us.